Hi, I'm Sunny Goldberg, and welcome to Know Your Neighbors. I am so excited. Unequivocally, this is my favorite show. We are here today with Susan Riley, Director of Mamaroneck Library, Laura Eckley, Director of Larchmont Library, and they're going to tell us all kinds of wonderful gift ideas. And let's start right from the very beginning. Laura, okay. I know you're ready to get this thing going.
I am, Sunny. I'm always ready to do this show. It's my favorite thing of the year, too. Oh. The first book that I'm going to recommend this year is a wonderful gift book called Bibliophile, an illustrated miscellany by Jane Mount. So this book is published by Chronicle Books. It's a real art book, you know, like a tabletop coffee table book that's just filled with beautiful illustrations of everything related to books. So there are illustrations of famous libraries throughout the world, famous bookstores, as well as quizzes about literary characters and topics, and then book recommendations from famous authors.
So that's a real bibliophile kind of...
Absolutely. If you have a reader in your house and you need a really good gift book for them, this is a terrific book. It's also just a really fun book to sit and look through and read through. You don't have to read every word. It's just beautifully illustrated. And then I also have a cookbook, which is a wonderful gift book. It's called Sister Pie by Lisa Ludwinski. And Sister Pie is a boutique bakery in Detroit, Michigan, and this is their first cookbook that they've put out. There's all kinds of pies in it, everything from different pie crusts that you can make, different pie fillings, and then also what they call hand pies, or what we call in my house Pop-Tarts. But you can make things that you can actually very easily make at home.
Put in, that's terrific.
Pies can be tricky.
Pies can be tricky, and pie crust in particular can be tricky, but this book has a very, very well
There's a whole thing in the New York Times today about dough and rolling it.
Oh, I didn't see that. I saw the thing about the octopus, but not the pies.
Right. Yes. So that's one, and you have a cookbook as well?
I do. I have a beautiful cookbook called Tahini and Turmeric. Now, I wish I had had this book about 3 weeks ago when my vegan stepdaughter had stayed with us. Okay. So this is a book of 101 Middle Eastern classics that are now vegan. And let me just show you one of my favorites. This is beets. I mean, look how beautiful this is. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous book with everything that looks so appetizing that even for people like me who do eat meat, something like this, how could you resist? It's just gorgeous.
Hey, that's so
this is a wonderful book to give as a gift for someone who is vegetarian or vegan.
Yes,
so.
And we have a vegan in our house, two vegetarian grandchildren, and it's gorgeous. So I love that idea.
It is.
Laura, you have...
I do. I have one more cookbook. It's called Cook Like a Pro by Ina Garten. So Ina Garten she never fails. Her cookbooks are beautiful. She has menus throughout. The recipes are incredible. It is not a vegetarian cookbook.
No.
but one of the things that I was thinking...
But you must have pasta.
Oh, she has. There are tons of recipes throughout the cookbook that are just vegetables. And I am a vegetarian. So one of the things that I often do is tinker with recipes to not include meat. And
we do that in our house too, and it's very easy.
It's very easy, and especially with Ina Garten's recipes, for some reason they tend to turn out really well when you remove meat from them. And I was thinking, Ina, if you're listening, your next cookbook, if you could send us a vegetarian cookbook, that would be great.
I love her recipes. I've never had a bad Ina Garten recipe, except sometimes she uses a little more garlic than I like.
She does, and sometimes she uses, I often have the butter or the cream
but it's much better to do olive oil and forget that. You're asking. While we're on the topic of kitchens
food,
and food, for book club we're doing Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, and it made me realize what a terrible loss this man's death was.
Yes.
It is so funny.
It's a funny book, yes.
Excuse me. And such a good read.
Now, I was just recommending to you the sort of a counterpoint one called Sweet Bitter that we had talked about before by Stephanie Danler. And that one is about a back server in one of New York's finest restaurants. And so it's kind of like the flip side of Kitchen Confidential. Very, very interesting, and I think they just made it into a TV show as well.
But this one is funny and well-written, a little R-rated.
A little bawdy.
A little bawdy.
A little bawdy.
But I just couldn't get over how much we enjoyed reading.
I loved reading it. I probably read it. I think it came out maybe 20 years ago. And,
exactly.
And he was I think working at Windows on the World when he wrote this.
And you go through every one of his restaurants. Right. It's a great guy gift or gal or anybody really, especially if you want to get a chuckle now and then.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, moving right along to nonfiction. Yes. I just have one other suggestion. My daughter was lucky enough to see Michelle Obama at the Barclays Center on Saturday night. She said it was wonderful. This is a terrific read. You learn about Michelle's childhood. You learn about the White House. And it's not such an easy transition. And she's just wonderful.
Does she talk a lot about her family
in the book? She talks about her family. She talks about how important her mother and father, and of course moving the mother with them, how she made life in the White House bearable for them and making her children normal. It's just a beautiful read and a great gift.
Not only is it a great gift, but it's a good book to read for yourselves. I know both of our libraries have multiple copies of this book. So if you aren't going to be giving it away as a gift, you might want to check it out at the library for yourself as well.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Both libraries do have holiday gift suggestions for adults and for children. You definitely should pick this up. It's terrific to have with you. You'll have this, of course, it'll be on both of the websites of the libraries. But if you want to just throw something in your purse, very easy.
And those are available on our websites as well.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, moving right along here.
Okay, I'm next. And for the music fan in your life, we have JT's new book, Hindsight. What a cutie this guy is, I have to say.
Forever.
And he's a local, he's a Westchester resident. Now, I thought I knew a lot about Justin Timberlake because I think he's a very talented guy on a lot of levels. And this book is more of a photo biography than actual real deep inner thoughts of him. But I found one of the chapters was so fascinating, and it was about his collaboration with Timbaland on that book, on that song that everybody loves, Sexy Back. You know, and how the producers did not want to produce this because they felt it was such a change from his normal type of music. So I don't know about behind the scenes music stuff. I found it really fascinating, and it's a great book to give as a gift.
And it's also it's full of beautiful photographs.
Yes, yes.
How can you take bad photographs of him?
Exactly. I know, he's so cute.
He's adorable. And you've got a 18...
And the next book that I have to tell you about, very different. It's called 18 Miles. And what I thought was really, really interesting about this book was that, did you know that 99% of the Earth's atmosphere is within 18 miles of the Earth? Okay.
I can honestly say no. How about
who knew?
you?
Who knew? Who knew? Right,
right.
Right. So, and you think about the weight of that. That's what keeps us on the Earth, basically, the gravity. But he talks about clouds and weather and how this impacts the climate. And the author is also a poet. So the whole book is almost like reading poetry in a way, while he's describing the Earth's atmosphere and everything. And I thought this was going to be a very dry book when I was first told about it. And when I picked up a copy of it, I was fascinated. And I really don't know much about weather at all, you know.
I'm thinking,
I thought it was really interesting, and it would be a great gift for people who are scientifically inclined.
Climate change, etc.
Absolutely.
It could be really, my environmental lawyer son-in-law Kevin will love it, and I'm sure people who are really concerned, which we all should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody should mail it to the White House.
Excellent idea. Oh, gosh. And moving on from there, 18 miles.
Okay, so for the adventurer or the explorer on your gift list, I have a book called The White Darkness by David Gran. Now, David Gran is a local author. He spoke at the Larchmont Library last fall for his book, which I recommended here last Christmas, The Killers of the Flower Moon.
Which is fabulous.
Wonderful book. A phenomenal book, and it went on to win all kinds of awards. So this is his latest book,
wow.
The White Darkness. It's a photo essay. It's just, again, it's just a beautiful read. It really isn't a full book-length novel, the nonfiction length book, the way that The Killers of the Flower Moon was. But there's all kinds of photos in it. So it's the story of Henry Worsley, who's a decorated British Special Forces officer who is obsessed with Shackleton and who decides to attempt Shackleton's journey of crossing Antarctica on foot alone.
Alone?
So, alone.
Wow.
He does it. First, he does it with 2 other members of, descendants of Shackleton's original team.
This actually got wonderful reviews.
It did, and then he decides to do it alone. So it really is an article, an essay about that journey and photographs, and it's a fascinating story. I mean, this man, this explorer, was completely obsessed with Shackleton.
And you know what? David and his wife are Mamaroneck residents, and supporting local people is the best thing.
Absolutely.
And this guy is just...
It's a great story.
Good.
It's a great story. So then, for the literature lover in your house, I have a book called Mad, Bad, Dangerous to Know by Colm Tobin. So he was the author of Brooklyn, which is a book we've also talked about here before, a wonderful book. This is really an illuminating study of Irish culture, history, and literature told through the lives of the fathers of Oscar Wilde, William Butler Yeats, and James Joyce. So by talking about the fathers of these 3 famous Irish authors, he touches on all kinds of things that are related to Irish history, Irish literature, and just the very nature of fathers and sons. It's a beautiful book. It's beautifully written. I could read anything that he wrote.
And you get an idea of their background and what made them...
It's really a good book. I think it's going to be, again, I think it'll probably win a lot of awards.
Such a great author.
And then my final...
Mad, Bad,
Dangerous to Know. I mean, it wins Best Title of 2018.
How could you not pick that one up? Okay.
Exactly. And so my last nonfiction book is The Library Book by Susan Orlean, who is the author of The Orchid Thief.
I love that book.
Which was a fabulous book.
It was a good movie, too.
It was a great movie.
It was a great movie.
Yeah.
Usually they mess up, and
I know.
It was a fascinating take on that bizarre story. She's also a New Yorker writer, so another great writer that takes these nonfiction stories and just turns them into something that you can't stop reading.
Must have been very spooky for you librarians.
It was. So this is the story of how in 1986 a fire was started in the LA Central Library that burned for 7 hours.
And how many?
A million books were burned or damaged.
God.
And in telling that story,
it hurts.
She talks all about the history of libraries, the nature of libraries, the running of libraries, as well as the story of this terrible fire and then the rebuilding of the Central Library. Was particularly interesting to me was the manager of the Central Library at that time was Betty Gates Heeman, who went on to retire from the Los Angeles library system and come to Westchester and became the director of the Rye Free Reading Room, where I worked 20 years ago when I became a librarian. So it had a very personal bent for me, but it's a great story. She's a wonderful storyteller.
Now we got to move on to fiction because we have very little time.
I have several great fiction books for you. First one is called Unsheltered, and I know that you enjoyed it as well, by well-known author Barbara Kingsolver. It's told in 2 voices, 150 years apart,
that's
approximately.
So neat. Back and forth is...
And Willa is a journalist, and she has a college professor husband, and they live in like the world's most dilapidated house. Okay. Now the same house was occupied 150 years earlier by a botanist who taught in a private school, who was really kind of almost run out of town because he insisted on discussing Darwin's theories. Right. So there's this juxtaposition of both people living in the same home. The house is falling apart all these years, but it's in a time of tremendous turmoil and societal change, and so it's very interesting to look at it from those two viewpoints. I agree. She has written so many wonderful books, like The Poisonwood Bible, Bean Trees, Pigs in Heaven, Lacuna, Animal Dreams. Excellent, excellent author. And another one which I loved, which you're just going to love too, is called Transcription by Kate Atkinson.
Excellent author. Oh,
Kate Atkinson also wrote Life After Life and God in Ruins. In this book, Juliet Armstrong is 18 years old in 1940 when she is persuaded to become a transcriptionist for spy recordings. So she's typing out all these recordings of British fascists. And she gets kind of segued into becoming a spy herself. Wow. And so it's very exciting. And then she survives the war, and she thinks nothing of it. And now she's working in the BBC as a radio producer, and she finds two men are following her. Uh-oh. And so she thought the war was completely over, but there's a surprise ending.
Kate Atkinson is such a good author. She builds up this suspense. And, all right.
And then for someone who likes more contemporary, popular sort of fun fiction, we have Leanne Moriarty's new book called 9 Perfect Strangers, which is, I think, going to be the biggest book of the year. I really do.
I can't wait to read it.
It's so much fun. It's just the best book.
Anybody out there?
I liked it even more.
Definitely.
I liked it even more than Big Little Lies, if you can believe it. In this book, 9 people are going to a very exclusive resort called Tranquillium. And it's an odd sort of a resort run by a very odd sort of a woman where there's enforced silence for several days, mandatory smoothie drinks, and then at one point they're all in a locked room. I mean, it's very, very strange, and you don't know what's going to happen, but this feeling of doom and disaster is creeping in. But the people are very funny in the book too, and so it's just a great ride. Great ride. Everybody will love this book.
All right, now what about you, Miss Laura?
So I have 3 fiction titles. The first one is called The Care and Feeding of Ravenously Hungry Girls.
Heard it's a great book.
It's gotten terrific reviews.
I don't even know that name. I'm so excited.
So this is the story. It's brand new. The story of 3 sisters that live in a rural Michigan small town.
I thought you were talking about the 3 of us waiting to have lunch.
Exactly. have a cookie.
No, we have chocolates from Chocolations. Come on.
I'm always ravenously hungry. So these are 3 small town sisters. They're a very Christian family, and then one of the sisters and her husband they're arrested for embezzling, and this just rocks their world. They go from being a very prominent, well-respected family in the town to being just absolutely ostracized by their friends and neighbors. And the story is told alternating each chapter from a different sister and a different point of view. It's just a really well-told story. Wow. I highly recommend it. The next book that I'm recommending is The Witch Elm by Tana French. Now, I think Susan has recommended books by Tana French before.
Yes,
I've never read anything by Tana French, and I have to confess I have not read this book. This recommendation is coming from one of our reference librarians, June Hessler, who had also never read anything by Tana French, and picked this up and came into work one day and said, I really didn't want to come into work today. I wanted to stay at home and finish this book.
That's a good
book. When a librarian tells you that, it's a good book. So this is the story of Toby, whose life is altered when there's a home invasion, and he is hit on the head and brutally beaten. Now he wakes up, he has some memory issues, a little bit of amnesia, and he has to recover from this terrible attack. So he goes to his family's home in the countryside. While he's recovering there, a body is found, a very old body, a skeleton is found in a wych elm tree on the property. And it's the mystery of who is this person and how did they get there? And at the same time as Toby's memory is starting to come back, he's questioning how much he knows of this murder and whether or not he himself was part of it.
Keep going, girls.
So that's it. And my last fiction book is The Hazards of Time Travel by Joyce Carol Oates. Now, this is a science fiction novel. And it's a dystopian science fiction novel. I love science fiction. I hesitate to recommend it here, but every once in a while there will be a science fiction book that really, even if you're not a science fiction reader.
I am not usually.
Station 11.
Station 11 was one of them.
Exactly.
Read this book.
Okay.
So Joyce Carol Oates is an incredible author. This book is set 20 years in the future in a totalitarian North American state.
It's getting a little scary.
It's getting a little too close to home.
Right.
A reckless and idealist young girl tests the perimeters that free speech is not allowed, and so she tests the perimeters of free speech. And her punishment is being sent back in time to 1950s Wisconsin, 80 years before. And so there she's adrift in this sort of idyllic Midwestern town where she's been sent for rehabilitation.
Having gone to the University of Wisconsin, it's quite a nice place.
There you go. It doesn't really sound that bad to me.
I love it.
And she falls in love with a fellow exile and starts to question the constraints of both her prison world and her
Hazards
reality.
of Time.
The Hazards of Time Travel by Joyce Carol Oates. Highly recommend.
Great. You're on, girl.
A quickie is by Stephen King. Now, usually he writes these enormously fat books, but Elevation is very different. Now, in this book, Scott has a problem which I personally would like to have sometimes. He's dropping weight like you wouldn't believe. He's dropping a pound a day, but he appears exactly the same as he's always looked. And as time goes by, he goes to see his doctor and all kinds of things, and they can't figure out, it's never been documented in medical history. Now his weight is finally approaching 0. So what's going to happen when his weight hits 0?
Wow.
It's really an interesting book, similar to Thinner, which is another book he wrote, but better and faster read.
Okay.
Yep. My last fiction book is part of a series, but it can be read by itself by John Sanford, and it's called Holy Ghost. It is set in a tiny town called Wheatfield, Minnesota, with 700 people, and it's kind of a falling apart town. And in order to kind of attract people to the town, some of the nefarious characters, including the mayor, staged this fake visitation by the Virgin Mary.
Wow.
Okay. But what happens is that people are coming to this town and a sharpshooter starts picking them off. So Virgil Flowers is the detective who is investigating the case.
Got it.
And I just love this book. I love police procedural types of books. And it's a quick read, and it's a standalone, and people who love this sort of thing will really like Holy Ghost.
All right, now all we've got left is kids.
That's right. Okay. I only have one children's book. It's a picture book. It's nonfiction. It's called Do Not Lick This Book. Always a good recommendation. We should have signs that say that in the library. Do Not Lick This Book by Aiden Ben Barak. It's nonfiction. It's the story of Min, who is a tiny microbe, and it shows these just incredible close-ups of everyday objects. So it is a science book for very small children, and it shows them when they lick something that maybe, it just looks like a book, everything they could possibly be licking. It's gross, but it's a lot of fun.
Great.
I had my grandson at a restaurant in Brooklyn Heights once, and he was licking the windows.
Yes.
And I had to say, Gus, stop licking the windows. No.
Gus needs this book.
And it's interesting because we just gave Leo, our grandson, a little microscope. And he just keeps studying.
That's very interesting.
He's very into that. So
how old is he?
He's 4.
That's great.
And it really, he keeps talking about specimens and
Yeah, that's neat. Okay, I have a book for teens called Harbor Me by Jackie Woodson. Now, Jackie Woodson is world famous as being one of the top young adult authors, and she's won all kinds of prizes. In this book, 6 kids are selected from their Brooklyn school to they're kind of classified as at risk, and they're going to be chatting kind of to bring up their self-esteem and everything. The main character is a young woman named Haley. She's 12 years old. She lives with her uncle because her mother is dead and her father is in prison.
Wow.
So this is all the kids. It's kind of like a breakfast club for,
you get a
for 12-year-olds.
Kind of a consciousness raising, kind of, how wonderful.
Very, very interesting, very well done. And my final one is a picture book called Turning Pages, My Life Story by Sonia Sotomayor.
Oh,
so she talks about her upbringing, how when she was 7 years old, she was diagnosed with diabetes. When she was 9 years old, her father died, and her mother had to take several jobs to bring the family up. How she went to Princeton, she found comfort in books. She was very, very directed. She was very single-minded and to become an attorney. And of course, now she is.
We are so lucky to have her on the Supreme Court.
We are lucky to have her on the Supreme Court.
Isn't that
so
neat?
This is such an inspirational book, but told in a nice level. I would say for ages 8 to 12, maybe. It's a great book for that age.
The wonderful thing about everything you've been talking about is we have two really good bookstores as well in this.
Yes,
and I'd love to mention our local voracious reader, Francine, is there, always willing to discuss, pick up books for you, show you how much she loves them. They have wonderful cookies and tea, and then you can go to Anderson's, and they do the same. I mean, for one village to have two bookstores is
very
pretty
fortunate.
neat.
And they will order books for you as well.
And they will order books for you. It's wonderful. We're very lucky, not just to have chocolations, but to have two wonderful libraries that...
The best. Thank you.
I cannot thank you enough. You ladies are just terrific. I want to encourage everybody again to stop by, pick these up, and also you will be able to see a list of all of the wonderful recommendations that you've given us for gifts. And the best thing about the library, every time I go to either Larchmont or to Mamaroneck, is your staff.
Oh, thank
you. They are phenomenal, no matter what I ask. Is there something fabulous here, or did I miss something, or I want the best book on tape, or whatever? It's really terrific. So in wrapping up, because we have like one more minute, anything you want to say to everybody out there?
Don't forget about books on tape. Okay.
Oh, I
Many
love
of us
them.
are traveling over the holidays,
Agreed.
and it's a great idea to get an audio book that you can play
What's
in the
that
car.
little thing called?
There's also such a thing as Play Away.
Yeah.
And of course, we have thousands of books that are downloadable.
Right.
So see our websites for more information, or come into the libraries and we can show you hands-on how to do
and
this.
You all have computers. You have the ability to learn that, and you have a book club as well. You have a book club.
We do.
I should just make a very quick pitch. We both have many book groups at our library, but we've just started a new cookbook book group at the Larchmont Library. It's called Literary Bites, and it's meeting every other month, and we pick a cookbook and we read it and we cook from it and we bring in recipes to share. It's a lot of fun. We had 25 people at the first meeting, and of those 25 people, 4 people were library staff members and 2 people were trustees.
Do they actually bring in
Yes, we bring in food.
So when's the next meeting?
The next one is Monday, December 10th. It's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we actually didn't pick a book. We just encouraged people to bring in their favorite Christmas or Hanukkah or New Year's recipe and come and talk about it.
I adore it.
That's a great idea, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Susan, for coming and sitting down and doing what is always my favorite show. Thank you for LMC-TV for being around, for Philippa, for you filming us, and for everybody out there, happy Hanukkah,
holidays.
Happy holidays, and we hope you've enjoyed this Know Your Neighbors. Go out and buy these books, and think about local bookshops. They really appreciate your business. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.